Okay.
Good morning, folks, on this wonderful January. It is, I look at my window and it's blue skies. Don't know how warm it is out there, but there you go. Part of that. And spring will be coming soon, woohoo, and things like that. But today we have an interesting talk. And it's called Peaceful Schools, Courses for Primary Schools. Now, this is something which I'm quite interested in also because I uh, know Helen basically from the time within youth work and uh, Quaker children and young people's groups and lots of other things like that. So we go back a little way in that respect. But we are speaking about something different this time. So, Jenni and Helen, it's over to you.
Thank you. I hope you can hear us clearly. Um,
Yes.
Good. I'm not sure if you would normally begin with a few moments silence.
Should we take a moment together, just quietly, friends?
Okay.
Okay, let's see if this slideshow works. Woof. This is what we planned to talk about. So we're going to talk about what is peace education and why is it important? We're going to talk a little bit about how did we start
In Bristol.
in Bristol. We're going to talk about how we're funded, which of course is very important and we'd like your support for. And we're going to talk a little bit, as much as you would like, about what we actually do in schools. And we just finished yesterday a six weeks of a session in a school, and we're very full of it. So I think we can talk for hours. So we'll try not to do that. Let's look at the next slide. So if you have, this is from Quaker Faith and Practice, as you can see, a definition of the importance, I think, of peace education. And the Quaker website, so if you just go to the normal quaker.org, has a huge amount of information on peace education and why it's important. And a lot of that is very research based and definitely worth reading. So I think we can leave you with that. So so that if you have more interest, you can have a look at that website. I should also point out that we've got a lot of photographs on our slides, and they all come from our visit to Nova School in Shirehampton last June. Mhm. Um, when we had a professional photographer from QPSW who came with us and took photographs of the children, which we had permission to use in our booklet. And a lot of the information in these slides and the photographs come from the booklet that we put together about what we do.
And it's also on the website.
And it's also on the website, yes, so you can have a look at the PDF of it. We feel that we hope that what we're doing is teaching children skills for life. One of the things that stuck with me when we were learning how to deliver the programs was we're doing positive peace. We're talking about positive peace, not negative peace. So negative peace is when two children are having a fight in the playground over football, and the teacher, who's got very little time, says, if you can't agree, I'll have the ball. I think positive peace is how do we resolve this conflict and how do we do it without blaming each other and how do we come to something that we can both agree to. And the other thing that stuck with me was the idea of live it, don't laminate it. Because a lot of schools have nice laminated signs, but we're trying to make sure that we're actually giving them skills to live it. How did we begin? So this is another photo with Helen at Nova School. During COVID, a group of us had training on peace education from Helen Porter, who has been doing it for a long time, delivers a peace education program in Central Wales. And then from her training, we developed our 6-week Peace Stub course. We've got volunteers from Bedminster, from Portishead, from Frenchay, from Redland. Area meeting agreed to fund the programme. We did a trial run at Shirehampton School, working with year 2. And that was an hour a week doing our programme in circle time with splitting the class in 2. So 4 of us were there. And we worked 2 with 15 children and 2 with another 15 children, with the teacher and the teaching assistant to support. And that was very successful. They invited us back, so it obviously went quite well. Area meeting funded our transport costs and photocopying. We didn't at that stage need too much financial support. And then following that, because we got in touch with QPSW and they had also given us support, we were invited to help with delivering peer mediation at St John's School in Worrell Road. And that was Ellis Brooks, really impressive. And he agreed to train us in how to deliver peer mediation. So we had a 2-day course for 20 friends from around Bristol and others who were interested. And we've delivered peer mediation 3 times now. And that's with Rosie, who's a peer mediation expert. and again, we're funded by area meeting. One of the things that we're debating is charging schools, which is an issue because schools are very short of money. And one of the schools that we've been to have said, we can't have you back because we can't afford to pay you. So that's an issue that we're in the process of discussing. Let's move on. So these are our 2 courses. The first one is the Peace Doves course. It fits really well into the statutory elements of the curriculum. So it's the spiritual, moral, social, cultural provision, and also a personal development strand of the Ofsted framework. It's part of encouraging schools to think about the kind of people we aspire to be, the kind of world we want to create, the kind of education that we want to give children. And we hope we're teaching them skills for life, but also on a very basic level. You can't learn if you're unhappy and if you're in a class that's full of conflict. So the Peace Doves, which is for younger children, is an hour a week for 6 weeks, working in circle time, working through games and activities and reflecting on, well, I'll go into more detail about that. But Helen, you might like to talk about the peer mediation.
Well, peer mediation, most Quakers are very involved in mediation work in general. So that business with the football can be in adult life as well as in children's lives, can't it? So peer mediation, I think, is very much about helping children really listen to each other, listen to the words that are said, but also the body language, and having an awareness of what the context of the disagreement is, and knowing that they've got, I suppose, the agency to help 2 pupils resolve the difficulty. And I think one of the things that struck me in the bits of adult mediation I did, and certainly being alongside the children and young people, is that sense of responsibility that one can feel as a mediator. Actually, it's not me who's responsible for resolving the difficulty. The two participants are. And that's such a real responsibility. You can almost see that happen to the children. And then our job is to be alongside them as well in sharing that understanding with them, that it's still the participants, the two disputants, who will do that. So we do lots and lots of games. We laugh, we giggle, and as well as that, we work really hard. And just to go back to the peace doves thing, yesterday we did an exercise where they had to put, there were 12 different things that you could say was really important for you to be your best person in a space. And they put beads on the 3 topics that they thought were the best things. And having fun was the thing that came out as the most successful. And I thought, well, that really is that learning by doing and laughing and having fun, and as well as that, gaining a life skill. So yeah, I must admit, I love the Peace Doves work. I love the look in children's faces and some of the challenges they present. Peer mediation feels a big responsibility for us as adults to equip the children who are age 9 to feel responsible and to take that responsibility. But we can talk more about that.
That's so very quickly, because we're in danger of
telling you too much.
The Peace Doves course has 4 different strands. We start with peace with myself, and we teach the children ways of calming down, which you're going to benefit.
Well, I can, and Rosie's also very good at this. A simple one that we do is, yes, hands, I'm sure many of you know it, which is to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Now, that's a very good way of calming down. It's also a very good way of us as facilitators just getting a little back to order.
And we also do, I think this was Rosie's, hold a flower, smell the flower and blow out the candle. So peace with myself, how you deal with anger successfully, how you deal with worries. Peace between us, beginning to, talking about anger, anxiety, what we need to be to do our best, peace among us, and peace in the world. And that's where we finished yesterday, really. So those are the strands of the Peace Doves course, which is taught in groups of 15 in circle time through lots of different games, and it's great fun. So this is just an example of the planning that we start off with. So we asked the children first, what is peace? And I included that picture because I think it's a really peaceful picture. My grandson's dug a great big hole on the beach at Weston-super-Mare and sat in it very quietly for a long time. And so it's very peaceful for the rest of us. So, and those are the kind of questions that we ask the children, and they sit in a group, and they draw out what they think peace is. So we're always asking them to contribute. It's not so much a lecture like this. It's very much involving the children.
No, that would not work.
No, it really wouldn't. And one of the things that is really valued and is really important.
It's the most popular thing we do in Peace Doves, isn't it?
It's called the magic carpet. And this picture was painted by our friend Gay. And we make a certificate with that. The children each have a turn to sit on a magic carpet, a shiny piece of material in the middle of the circle, and their friends say what makes them unique and special. The teacher's often included. It's that affirmation is something that they get so rarely, and some of the things that people have said have been amazing. I mean, things like, I can't wait to see what you do when you leave school because you're going to be incredible. Those kind of statements. And we've also put the teacher in the middle and had the children give affirmation for the teacher. And at the end of the course, everybody gets a certificate with those things that were said about them on the certificate. And that, I think, is really,
It
we
is
really
important.
enjoy.
I was thinking how Marion Liebman was really helpful with us, and Sue Tuckwell, in saying, do encourage the children to look at the person who is giving them that affirmation so that they really hear it. And yesterday we gave out certificates to each of the children with all these affirmations beautifully written by Jenni, who has a way of reframing some of the comments beautifully. And each child did absolutely look at, in fact, my co-facilitator, Elaine, read out the name, what these children had done, and each child automatically looked at her, and they were so chuffed. And the Peace Doves badge.
Yes, they got a special badge which says Peace Doves, which they were very pleased
Yes.
with. I don't know how long they'll last.
Neither do I, but can come do them all in one colour next time.
Yes. Oop. Oh,
Doorbell.
Never mind, we'll ignore it. I think what we had in mind was we could do one of the activities with you if you would like. But I think we probably need
Perhaps
to keep
questions, yes.
Well, we need to talk about peer mediation. Shall we move on to that? We'll lead the activity, and if you want us to do it, we can do it at the end. So we talked now mostly about the Peace Doves course, which is for year 2, 3, and 4. And recently we've been doing it mostly with year 4. But we're now going to go on and talk about peer mediation. So let me see what the next slide is. There we are.
Well, what's there to say? Most of you know what peer mediation is, and I'm hoping Rosie will chip in if we've missed something. It's so much about restoring the relationship, and I think that is probably the message that we put across to the children closely. It's not the problem. The problem isn't theirs to solve. What they want to do is provide the safe context in which two children who are disputants can resolve and come to a solution of their own problem. Yeah, I think it's no different from any other mediation. What we do is to ask the disputants to agree that they will listen to the story. And as we train, we have the greeting, the promise, listening to the story, echoing back the story. And in fact, one of the stories we could use with you today, if there were time, would be just how accurately have we heard what were the concerns, what were the facts, and then the ideas for the solutions that the peer mediators will try to encourage from the disputants. And then the solution. It may be a solution or the resolution, what will work. And if it works for the disputants, it's just like adult mediation. If it works for the disputants, then it's a good enough solution. And the end of the mediation. So that's the process, the glide script. You can see the acronym. And I think we may be going on to how we then rehearse it with the children. I think that might be a bit too detailed. Should we
Do you
go
think
on?
it's
Yeah,
too
I think
detailed? We'll go on.
we'll go on. The glide script is,
Oh,
oh,
do you want me to go back?
yeah, I think so. What we perhaps could make a comment on are the promises. We want you to promise to listen and not interrupt. No shouting, name calling. Stay calm and in your seats. Is that so different from adults? As adults, we also say we won't take sides, we won't tell you what to do, and we won't gossip about your problem. Again, it's no different. I think where the peer mediation training as trainers might be different is just working with children who are aged about 9, because we work in year 5, ready for them becoming peer mediators in year 6. Now, this is very much the sort of nuts and bolts of our training, 2 days. But prior to that, Jenny does a huge amount of work with the school to help prepare the school because that buy-in from the school is so important. They have, we ask them to allow us to talk with certainly a whole year group. Sometimes it would be a much bigger group than that through the years, to talk about what is mediation so that all the school understands that, so that it's a whole school approach to mediation and restorative justice and restorative practice. Now, that means that the school supports that ethos of not, so that classroom assistants, people working in the playgrounds, even the catering staff can all support that. That may be possible in some schools, it may not be quite so possible in another. And I think that's where Jenny's work is so important, talking with the schools about how much can they commit. It's way beyond what we can provide in the training. Yeah.
They need to have so we always, whatever course we're doing, we have a member of staff or a teaching assistant with us because, of course, we don't know what the rules are about when you can go to the toilet,
Yes.
whether you can go and get a drink of water. And also with peer mediation, the school needs to allocate a member of staff to then supervise it when it starts running in year 6. So when year 5 move to year 6, they become the peer mediators, and they then have to be, how they're doing and what they're doing has to be monitored, and they have to have a member of staff they can go to if they get a problem that they feel is beyond them, or if they have difficulty in resolving it.
Because there are certain things that we know that children can't help others resolve, and that includes bullying, racism, things that have happened at home. And I think what probably we ought to be really clear about is we're working with within the area meeting safeguarding policies. And that there's a nominated person in the school who we also have contact with around safeguarding. And we always have a member of school staff with us, both in peace doves and in
Peer
peer mediation. And that's so important. I think if it would be great to get more feedback from the schools, wouldn't it?
We've had some lovely feedback from the children. We had a beautiful card which said, "Thank you, Quackers."
Is that where we use that quack on the front?
And we've had feedback from the schools have invited us back, which is very positive. So that's great.
Yes, and certainly where we were yesterday, St Bonaventure's, which feels like almost like our home base. That actually began because as it's a Catholic school in Bishopston, and they visited Horfield Meeting, and Judy had talked with them about a variety of things, including Quaker commitment to peace and peace education. And it was from that, I think it almost feels like we've got a partnership with them in some ways.
Doesn't it? It does.
We've been, they welcome us with great warmth.
Yes,
it's
we've
lovely
got to know them. I think we've almost come to the end. Let's do. So what we're asking something from you too. If you've got any contacts in schools, we've got hard copies and posts of our booklet. We've got posters, and we're very happy to go in and talk to people. It's often difficult to get past the receptionist. It's like trying to break into Fort Knox, I think, although I've never tried that. But it's a challenge. And of course, heads and teachers are so busy. So it's great if we have a recommendation. And we're also thinking to keep this continuing, we need to have a bank of volunteers. And so we're happy always to do further training. And we have all the planning and we have the resources. So
I think one of the things area meeting also supported us to do was to go to the Peacemakers Training Day in Birmingham,
which was brilliant. Yeah.
The cost of travel is really the main cost for most of us. And so the train fares to Birmingham for about 4 of us, 5 of us, to learn more to gain confidence, to network with other people who are doing peace education work, often in secondary schools, because that would certainly be a next step as far as I'm concerned. But it feels a good opportunity to meet together, and we hope we'll have other opportunities to meet I suppose the other peace education network that Quakers run. Again, it's peacemakers that run that in general on Zoom.
Yes, I mean, it's been fantastic support from Quakers, from QPSW, from Peacemakers in Birmingham. It's fantastic. And they've offered to look at our planning, and we've had training from them. So that's been really good. I think, and I've come to the end of the slides, so I'll see if I can escape from this.
Yeah, might be a big ask. I wonder if there's anything Rosie wants to. Oh, and Marion, goodness me, we've really got the big guns. Oh, Rosie, can't hear you. You're on Zoom. You're on mute.
Just realised I was muted. Yes, in relation to peer mediation, I think it's interesting to know how the school chooses the potential peer mediators. Anyone who is interested is invited to write a letter, and I believe it's the head who reads them. And I was very struck. Marion Lieberman, who is one of our volunteers, was encouraging the teachers to also look at the troublemakers, inverted commas, because they know what being in trouble is like, and they sometimes, it really is the making of them that they then turn around and actually become peer mediators themselves, and it improves their behavior, builds their confidence, and so on. So all of that contributes to a more peaceful school environment. The other thing that struck me particularly in the Peace Doves group, we had noticed in some classes a higher number of children with special support needs, and in talking with teachers, they reckon some of that is to do with COVID. The children were behind, and also children who had special needs who were at home and weren't getting the support that they might have got if they'd been at school, and so forth. So, that's another reason why having the teacher present is hugely important, because we want to make sure that we're dealing with the issues and the behaviours consistently as the school and the teachers would do, that we're not undoing their good work. And I have to say, as a volunteer, I thoroughly enjoy working with the young people. It just is so incredible, this opportunity that they're given and how they take it on and act very responsibly. The other thing I thought was lovely was that one of the games we do is the fives.
Oh, yeah.
Negative fives and positive fives. And we stand in a circle and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so if you're number 5, you're out. You have to sit down. But the children can be very clever. They can try and get each other out by saying 1, 2, because they know who's going to be number 5. But then we turn it on its head to positive fives, and we identify 2 people to save. And it's wonderful how the children quickly take that on board, and really work hard to save those 2 young people so that they never become the number 5. And it takes great concentration, and they're all for it. But what we heard was that actually they often play these games that that we use out in the playground. And finally, the other thing to share was that the head teacher at one of their assemblies did the finger tracing, relaxation, with the children, etc. So it's been picked up and sort of, echoed throughout the school in many ways. And just to add what both Jenni and Helen said was that we get a very good welcome And I feel like we're pushing an open door in terms of the school ethos, that they provide places for children to go to be quiet if they need to. There are sort of respite corners in the classrooms, all of these kind of things. So we're adding another layer and consolidating what they're already doing, which is very, very positive and reassuring for us as well. But I love the work.
Brilliant. I think that's the other thing to add. It's fun for the children, but it's also fun for us. And you don't need to be a teacher to do it at all. You
I think
just
it's an advantage not to be a teacher.
but but you do need to enjoy being with children, and that's a treat, I think. So yeah, I wondered if you had any other questions before we finish.
Hi, this is Claire. What's perhaps the most challenging situation you might have run into so far? Or has it all been? I've been part of only one session at St. Bon's with the little ones, and that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. But what can be the more challenging situations just to be prepared for?
Wet Thursday afternoon when they haven't been out at lunchtime. They want to be out on their way home and their energy is sky high.
Yes, we met one class yesterday that we were going to take, and their teacher was saying, right, I know it's wet, I know your shoes are going to get wet, but you're all going to go outside and run around the playground twice before you come in again, because otherwise you won't survive the day.
You are not my favourite people.
Yeah. So I think we've had 2 sessions in a row on sort of rainy days when they've been shut in, but that has actually been fine. I think the biggest challenge was right at the beginning when we weren't clear enough with the school that we must have someone with us. And that has happened a couple of times, I think, that we've had one group in the music room say, and the teaching assistant has not appeared. But I think, and that, of course, we cannot continue in that situation. We have to get someone in to come and sit with us because, as we were saying, there are children with special needs which we can't be told about and we don't know about, and we need that support.
There's also the infectious, I need some water.
Yes.
Or the infectious, I need to go to the toilet,
yeah.
Which suddenly disappears if there's a teacher in the room.
Yes, indeed. Oh. So I think that it's not the material, it's having games and things which you can use at different times really helps. When you can see if they're restless, we'll play an active game. We've just done something where we've all been sitting quietly and we need to, do something lively for a few moments. So that really helps.
I think it's important I was thinking about children's faces and how much, Ray alluded to youth work, and so much about youth work is, I think, or a lot of it is about building relationships with young people and using that as an important vehicle for other things. I think it's when we go into the schools, we do build a sort of relationship, but we're here today and gone an hour later. So it is different. And the structure of discipline in the school is something that's a very important framework. And it has to be said, St. Bon's is a Catholic school, and there is quite a firm structure and understanding. The word respect is very much part of their vocabulary. I think what I've quite enjoyed doing is, as part of the work we're doing, unpicking what words mean.
Yes.
And some of the conversations that then come, one might be respect, or yesterday was empathy, and support. What does support mean? And one 9-year-old could explain that far better than I could. They're just brilliant.
They are. They're lovely.
Sorry. Can I just add a couple of challenges? I think sort of there's been only once, I think, but it made a big difference. There was a learning assistant who seemed to think it was more important for her to get on with her work and was either marking books or popping in and out of the classroom. That was very, very disruptive and kind of subtly or not so subtly undervalued what we were doing. And I think it's so important to have somebody who's kind of right behind you so that, when somebody needs to go to the toilet, or when somebody has something, some demand that, we don't know whether to say yes or no, they very quickly say, yes, okay, or no, we don't do that, or whatever. The other thing I think is quite important is to have chairs all at the same height. And I remember one session being totally disrupted by a child who I think had some special needs and somehow needed to sit in a chair that was a kind of big chair with rollers, and they spent the whole session just rolling around the room. And it was, the kind of motion, and the differentness and the disruptiveness of it was quite difficult. So I think a kind of, unless there's some particular reason, is some kind of parity. Um, but the schools are sometimes also very good at working with somebody who has very special needs. I remember there was at St. Bond's, there was a child who couldn't communicate verbally at all, and she had a learning support assistant who somehow, worked with her with a special board, that she could point things towards, and then would kind of be a kind of mediator. And she was with that kind of help, she was perfectly able to take part.
Actually, Marion, you've reminded me of something that happened, and it picks up on Rosie's comment about who chooses who will be peer mediators in the long run. Again, it was at St. Bond's, and it was in that circle that Jenni showed at the beginning. There was certainly 3 boys in that group, and they were the boys, and we had 8 boys and 8 girls, in fact, who were used to being the problem, not the solution, as they said in the feedback. But one of them, I mean, we did have a disruption in whilst on morning of day 2. And I thought, oh no, what's going to happen? And the fabulous, wonderful support person who was with us and responsible for the whole group. She was the learning support assistant, wasn't she? She had complete responsibility for this. Said, right, Helen, let's do a mediation then. Okay, right, yes, let's. So it was Kate Cashmore and I were the mediators, and the 2 boys presented the problem that had happened in the room, and that had come from doing a particular game that they'd misinterpreted, shall we say. But what's important was the boy who was needing the mediation actually didn't want to take part because he felt aggrieved. But the learning support assistant sat alongside him, brought him in, and she supported him going through the promises and then coming up with solutions. It was just fantastic. What felt like, oh my goodness, how are we going to deal with it, was immediately probably the mediation that I'll most remember, better than any case study. It was also a joy working with Freya Allport, who, as a young woman who was part of one of the groups that Marion and I've worked with as a young one, really young one. She's now 21, but she came in and she's been working as a teaching assistant in a school earlier on. So it was Kate Cashmore, Freya, and I who were doing that peer mediator training. It was great.
Can you give us some sort of sense of the feedback that you get from the schools or the mediators about the impact of the course, and whether it's changed behavior in the classroom or in the playground?
Yeah, one of the difficulties is extracting feedback from the school, because obviously we've been and gone, it's worked well, and they're happy with that, and that's the end of it. And as you know, we get feedback requests from everybody. You only have to have a meal in a restaurant and you get 2 emails. I think the feedback that we've had from the schools, certainly they ask us back, and we can see that at St. Bond's, their peer mediation system is working, and they're really pleased with it. they have really backed it. And they've invited us back now to do the peace stuff sessions 3 times. The feedback that we had from Shirehampton, we went back twice, and their feedback was really positive. They said that they would recommend us to any school. But then the following year they were redoing their curriculum, and now they have a new head. So we're kind of starting again with our approach. I mean, that I think is the difficulty, is getting invited into schools in the first place. The Quaker, the QPSW or the Quaker website on peace education will give you a lot of evidence about the benefits of peer mediation for schools. As an ex-teacher, I so value the fact that the children can sort out the problem themselves in the playground and not bring those issues into the classroom. So I think it's a really powerful thing. And the language, we talked a lot about teaching the children language to describe their feelings, and a lot about putting yourself into the other person's shoes. I think from peer mediation, a lot about taking out blame language and mind reading and all those kind of things. Those tools are so important.
And I was thinking, I know it's something that's very close to Marian's heart, but actually we going in and doing a few sessions probably won't make a vast amount of difference. It's the whole structure of the school and the whole school approach. And I think, Marian, you knew Shirehampton had been a restorative practice school. Was that right? Have I?
Yeah, it was one of those kind of surprises that when we started going into Shirehampton School, I kind of thought, wait a minute, I remember that kind of way back when Bristol was trying to be a restorative city, which went by the wayside during COVID. Shirehampton School was the kind of showpiece at conferences because they had a peer mediation scheme, and the school was organised on kind of restorative justice or restorative processes lines, with a wonderful head. And they used to demonstrate peer mediation, and then it all went quiet. And so the people sort of trying to do restorative Bristol things thought, okay, well, as we said before, personnel changes, the kind of proactive person has moved on to something else, and it's all stopped. Meanwhile, the school thought, oh, well, we never hear any more emails from them. Perhaps they've stopped. All that had happened was that actually the system for school emails had changed. So the school didn't get our emails, and we didn't get their emails, because they didn't know anything was happening. So I thought I must go and talk to the head teacher. Is it still the same one? And it was. And she was just, I've been waiting to see what the new one is like. But she's very visionary. She said, "This is the way we have to go, and we don't exclude people, pupils. In fact, we take excluded pupils from other schools, and within about 4 months they're coming to show me a special piece of work and having a special cup of tea with the head, and we make sure that we have people trained in sort of trauma-informed education, and we make sure that we have people who can deal with things like PTSD." So she had a whole range of people trained in different things, including having a peer mediation and as a restorative approach to the whole school, the whole classroom. So instead of doling out punishment, they just say, okay, so we've got a problem here. How should we deal with it? And I just thought, sort of, what a coincidence that we should be back at the same school. Probably no coincidence, because Rita and Ashley kind of said it was quite a good school. I mean, they might not have known all the background, but it was so interesting to kind of put the kind of threads together. And of course, I don't know what the new head is like and whether they have the same kind of passion about it, but certainly the head, because you really need it to be sort of all through the school, because otherwise you get inconsistencies like somebody sort of sorts out a problem in a kind of restorative and peaceful way, and then you find they get whacked with a detention just the same because the punishment system of the school overrides it.
Yeah.
And that's obviously very confusing and very damaging.
Yeah,
So
I think that's part of, what we've been going into schools and talking about what the peer mediation actually involves, so that
yeah,
that doesn't happen. You've got to have a member of staff
yeah,
involved, and they've got to agree that they're going to take it on and that
yeah.
they're going to, follow through with peer mediation and that it fits with their ethos.
Mm.
Um,
But for anybody who's interested in research and evidence, Quakers have produced the most wonderful guide. It's on the website. It's in print, about 64 pages long, and it's all about evidence for peace education, which is, well, I think practically uniformly positive, but in all different aspects. And there's even a kind of summary, um, kind of sheet, sort of little brochure, if you can't stomach 64 pages of it. That's sort of summarizing it all. And it was done by somebody called David G. A very, very good writer, but unfortunately he died earlier last year of cancer at a very early age of sort of 51 or something, which is really, really very, very sad. But if anybody does want to follow up, when people kind of say, oh well, it's all very well, this kind of nice, soft, fluffy stuff, but really, it doesn't really teach children anything, and it's not really important, etc., etc. Well, you can just sort of get the evidence and say, here, read this.
Just a sort of rather left field thought, but do you think that there is opportunity of working through educational psychologists who are working with schools that have problems as a letting them know that this tool does exist, and maybe that they would be recommending that as a solution to some of the school problems that they're confronted with?
Yes, I mean, when we were doing Restorative Bristol, the educational psychologists were involved. Somebody called Duncan Gillard, especially, he was an educational psychologist, and they were doing quite a lot in this kind of area. But I don't know sort of how the system works. I think a lot of them now are freelance people contracted in and out, so that doesn't make for any kind of
I know.
consistency.
No.
I think the
And
key
there's a team of educational psychologists in Bristol, and there's Peter Lowe's partner is one, and my son-in-law is another
Oh,
one.
right. Well, talk to them about it.
I once chatted to a few people from schools, and when I mentioned educational psychologists, they said, gold dust.
yeah.
And that is a sense of that. But a couple of tiny things I'd like to bring up. One, you mentioned earlier the fact that one school said they couldn't afford your work. Is that their way of getting out of saying, no, we just don't want to be bothered with you, type of thing? Or do they really not afford it? And because this is such good work and it's such work which should be undertaken, would area meeting be prepared to cover the costs on that?
That's a good question, and of course, it's hard to be sure what the answer to whether they just the feeling that we had when we were there. That was Nova School was they were really keen and they really enjoyed it, and so I mean the evidence is, but it's been very difficult to get feedback from them. That is also the experience of QPSW and Peacemakers in Birmingham. The feedback afterwards is hard to extract. But when I got in touch with them again to ask them if they would like us to come back, I said, we plan to start charging, partly because, our expenses, and it's a commitment from them. I think they need to commit to it, and it makes us seem a bit more professional, perhaps, but it's also them showing that, yes, we really want this. And their response was, we have to be upfront with you. We just can't afford to pay anything. So at the moment, so far we have been funded. I think by area meeting, and we're talking about whether we make a presentation to trustees about how we can continue to be funded.
Jenni and I and Rosie and to a certain extent Marian's been involved in this conversation about how much is it a partnership with schools where they're putting in their time, their commitment to the work, um, and showing a value by making a payment. Many of us have been at conferences where, oh, it doesn't matter because it hasn't cost anything. So if I don't turn up, it won't matter. Or crikey, that's cost £500 per delegate, better turn up. What do you say? What's the level of partnership or commitment that we need? Because going back to what Marian was saying, if it's done in isolation, thank you, that's nice, goodbye, it's not going to work. And that's a waste of time, except, of course, I suppose one could say that some of the children will have gained some life skills, in which case, yes, great. I don't know.
Yeah, we're still, in discussion about that, I would say. And at the moment, we're in contact with the Cardinal Newman Trust, because a lot of these schools are now in trusts, as you will know, and that's the Catholic schools, and they're quite interested in it's a possibility to go into other schools like St. Bond's because the ethos fits together very well. But
we also had good.
Do we charge them?
To be discussed. And we also had a conversation with Schools for Sanctuary.
Yes.
Who are supporting of us. I think the issues are for all schools, aren't they? That greater empathy and understanding between one another, regardless of culture, is so important. And one could say that if every school had this approach and helped to think about peace, doves, and as a basis, that there's a great many ways in which it would help many schools. Peer mediation is then another step. So I think it's actually partly through Schools for Sanctuary that we had the contact with Cardinal Newman.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
There's only one tiny question I know because it affects me in this respect, is that you're saying people would have to write a letter to the headmaster type of thing, but the only problem with me with that respect was I'm dyslexic. So writing a letter to the headmaster would not be a very good thing because they go, what's this?
I think it does vary. That was the approach that one school will make. In fact, with Nova, it was speak to Miss So and So in the playground at lunchtime, and then you'll be, they'll decide. So it depends a lot on the structure and formality of the school. And again, Marian and in fact Ellis, when we did the QPSW training, were really clear that it shouldn't be based on who's clever and who may be very clever, but it's not through the written word. Who can use those creative skills in communication can actually be incredibly valuable. And so no, it isn't about writing a good letter in neat handwriting sort of stuff. It's what do you bring?
Yeah, St. John's School didn't do it like that. So what they did was to get the children who were interested in being peer mediators to give a short talk to their class about it, and then they were voted for. And I think the voting was also rigged a little bit. But but our challenge from Ben Harper, who's the peer mediation trainer from QPSW, is to do it with the whole class. So instead of doing it with the small group of children who want the training, but actually because these are life skills, to teach the whole class. I'm not sure we're ready for that yet, but it would be an interesting thing to try and do.
Until you have your hand up.
Me? Oh,
yeah,
yeah, right.
John.
Yeah. Hello. I have got a friend who lives north of Liverpool. And I'm very clear that this would be very useful in their schools. The school that her son goes to has coped magnificently with him because he's got quite a lot of behaviour issues. But are there other groups of Quakers doing such peace work in schools in different parts of the country?
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. I mean, this is a handbook that we have used a lot for a group of people that we've had a lot of help from. That's peacemakers.org.uk. They're based in Birmingham. They've got a different model where they invite different children from different schools to come to their centre and they do the training there as well as going into schools. We know that there's a group in Malvern, there's a group in North Wales, Mid Wales.
I think there's one in the Northwest. I was also thinking that peacemakers are still just funded and will deliver.
Still what funded? What funded?
They are funded. They have some level of funding. They're largely Quaker based. They used to be funded by Central England Area Meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Now their funding is diversified and they're seeking more to work across the country so that they can provide training in schools for teachers, because that's another model that QPSW do. And you may have seen in things like Quake, where they'll train a whole bunch of teachers so that it's held within the school, the expertise. I think which in itself is an interesting model. It's a useful model, and Marion will have experience of a wider view, but I think in some schools they really like us going in as outsiders to the school because it's connection with the community, particularly for primaries. Whereas the model of the school running it and it's held within is another way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But peacemakers are a very good source of training, support, and good colleagues.
Yes.
I mean, if they're going national, then they would be worth contacting to see if they're doing anything in the Northwest.
Yes.
There's a group in the Northeast, in I think Middlesbrough, and I think there's another group in Sheffield. But also Ben Harper,
Yeah.
he has a national brief, so he could tell you probably which schools in the Northwest are doing it, and if there's an organisation or any kind of group to plug into, or help to get something going.
Yes. And he is actually, that reminds me, giving some training in London for peer mediation trainers. The training that we had, he's doing it in March. So if anyone's interested in that.
A quickie. This is great to hear about the knowledge that you're giving out and sharing. I didn't realize there were quite so many Quaker groups active across the whole country. And I was just the picture behind me is where I went to learn to teach meditation 50 years ago. And that's been spreading more in schools. And I can show you, look, when you have children practicing meditation, these are schools in my background now. These are schools where the whole school practices meditation together morning and evening. And there's a lot of research, doesn't show up well on my machine, that shows reduction in crime as a result of people meditating together in groups. So the practice of personal peace in large groups, and this is whole school systems with groups of 10,000 meditators. There's 5 groups coming together across the world at the moment, and it's starting to have an effect. There is an otherwise inexplicable reduction in the murder rate in the capital of this country.
Yes. Yes.
And the only way you can explain it easily is because large groups of meditators are reaching critical mass across the world. But what Quakers have is this specific knowledge of how to work with groups who've been in conflict or who have conflict. It's one thing to be able to sit and achieve a level of peace. It's another to have the actual skills And I think what you're doing is wonderful and should be there at the same time. And that should be there in those schools. And what you're doing in schools should be augmented with these kinds of practices.
And there's a prison in India that does the same. Everybody meditating.
There you go. Right. Any more questions for Jenni and Helen from anybody? Nope. Right then, friends, it's come to me as my lot to say thank you very much indeed for a talk which was inspiring and encouraging and made us think a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lovely, yeah, thank you.
I would, before you all disappear, what's happening next Friday is we have a Melanie?
Mally. Sam Mally.
San Mally.
Yeah.
Meeting the incorporate, a service of connection with the natural world and our environments. As you can see, we do totally different things occasionally. So I hope you'll join us. As I say, rather humorously, tell your friends, tell the cat.
And
Come to a meeting next Friday.
I can see a problem coming up with that talk, and that is I post them on YouTube and there's a limit of 100 characters, and that sounds like a long talk name. We'll figure something.
There you
Lovely.
go.
Till next Friday.
David.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jenni and Helen. That was great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very
Thanks.
much, Jenni.
Thank you,
and
Jenni.
Helen.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Helen.
Helen.
Great talk.
Thank you.
Very, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.